Now officially halfway over the season mark, we enter some treacherous territory for week 7 of the FF1600 SOF. It's a treacherously hot track and a treacherously high SOF today. It's Long Beach for the FF1600 SOF on Monday. As ever, I'm Howie Burrows, joined by Ron Mons. And Ron, you have not seen races as hot as this around here, so give us a little talk through what you know of this track.
I'll tell you what, Long Beach was one of the most storied street courses in not just America, but the world as far as I am concerned. Used to host Formula 1, originally started as a Formula 5000 track, and of course IndyCar has made it its home over recent decades. IMSA even runs here as well, but outside of that, Long Beach is just synonymous as being an old school, old design racetrack, even though the version that we're running on here, Howie, hasn't really been in use for too terribly long. In the over 40 years that Long Beach has been a place, they've had a lot of different track layouts. The current one that we're running at here, though, has been in use since about 2000, so it's a really good track. It's one that I find to be synonymous with the world of street tracks, but I'll tell you what, this has been a challenging week for these drivers, not only having to worry about the tricky nature of the track itself, but also the conditions that these racers have had to face throughout this week as well.
That is 58 Celsius on the track temp. I'll try and get this worked out in Fahrenheit for you. In fact, worked out, I'll click one button. 130. So we're sitting here in California in the middle of the hot summer, and I heard these cars haven't been too drafty around here this week. Most drivers in this open setup series using the medium gear stack. They're topping out early on the straights, but in exchange, they are just trying to keep it around these tight corners. The final corner, the home of many a pile-up as well. It's going to be tough just to make it to the end today, I think.
Yeah, this, of all the races that we have throughout this season here in Season 3, this is the week where to finish first you have to finish is probably going to be the most true. It is a spot where these drivers can really make or break their season. If they have a good one here, they're going to be looking pretty in the championship. If they have a stinker here, though, it may be a bit of a tough road ahead.
Here's our championship standings dispensed of. We get drop weeks very, very soon. We will have 4, but we only introduce them once they start becoming relevant. So drivers like Kieran Shanks, who have been very fast but joined very late, are going to start jumping up very, very soon. For right now, Renz Brookman has been a consistent figure. I've been trying to keep track of the qualifying lap record, because one day we'll get one broken. I don't think it will happen today, because the person that set the outrageously fast lap record for the week is unaccounted for, but Renz Brookman's official qualifying record is a 127 even, which I think is just as impressive. He sets out on his first lap right now, but there are other drives that will be done first, and Medma will be one of the first.
Yeah, so let's see what sort of times these drivers will be able to set here in this qualifying session. Burning hot for that track temp. Humidity rather dry at the moment at 31%. That's the thing. It's heat, but it's California heat, so it is scalding hot, but completely bone dry. It's not like Florida heat where it's going to be hot and incredibly humid. So these racers won't have to worry about any sort of mistiness in the air. They just have to worry about a really incredibly greasy track surface that can be super unforgiving following in Medma. Heading off through one of the most challenging corners around this track as far as I'm concerned. That's turn number 8, heading down onto the back straightaway. So it's super important to get the run heading off through there as strongly as you can, but it's also super difficult because the track bottlenecks so much heading off into there. This is one of the only parts of this track that is not public roads. This is driving through a parking lot, but you can see how sideways, slideways, and Medma was with that huge sideways snap in the number 2 car, heading around turn number 10, another challenging bend here. Getting some times on the board, Marnell Noldis jumping up to that provisional pole to 127.4, and bringing in a little bit of knowledge that we got from Weekend Warriors yesterday, where the track conditions were a lot more, a lot less temperamental, a lot more, I'm not really sure the best way I could describe it. The track temperatures weren't disgusting in that race. We saw some pole times in the 126.1s. If we see a driver set a 126.1 this qualifying session, I will eat my shoes.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's physically possible, but look at what we're seeing on the board already. 127.1s on the first go around, and Medma's slide on the tyres really hurt his first lap, but it wasn't even the slowest on the board, so maybe there's a chance around for redemption. It's Ren's Brookman due to set the first. Now, these predictions can be a little spotty, so let's keep an eye on it as it approaches the line. Probably going to pan out to be 27-2 region near the top with a little bit more to gain to take down Kieran's best lap. It is P2 for now. Kieran was fastest on the first go around. I'm telling you, that's spotty. We're just going to look at something else. That ain't helpful. How about that? That will do. Most drivers do to set their second now. Christopher Cash, not fast enough. Martin Nolders is faster, 127.0. Will we see a 26.903 on the bottom? 26.935 up on the top.
Yeah, that is a very good lap time from Shanks, looking to grab the pole position, which I feel like is going to be a bit more important here than it has been over recent weeks. Of course, you brought up a great point, Howie, talking about these drivers deciding to go with that certain gear stack, so the slipstreaming won't be too prevalent heading down the start-finish stretch into turn number 1. So I think track position and a qualifying run worth the ages is going to be important here in this session. So Shanks doing everything he needed to do. Jordan Gronkowski slotted in second right now. That's some very good spots for them, but very close all throughout this field as well, with less than a tenth separating some racers up and down the grid. Marcus Luzo, and we see him heading his way down into turn number 1. Oh, hitting the outside wall. That's not going to be a good lap for him.
I had a graphic set up to like compare the two cars, and I was really hoping that I'd be able to deploy them, and then it just turns out that's not going to happen. That's one more lap just got done by, that's Ren's Brookman's second lap. Some of these car graphics are a little bit off, but that's what the WD-40 is going to fix, otherwise known as one funny press of the refresh button. And then once that's done, I'll be able to set you up with starting grid with most of our drivers done for the day. I mean, I think we're going to be ticking down on the timer all we want, but I think we can focus on our starting grid. See, the WD-40 continues to be off in different ways, but we'll just run it like this. Kieran Shanks takes pole position. Ren Spookman very close in P2. Jordan Gronkowski sits in P3, with Martin Arnoldo's first driver to be a 10th down in P4. Christopher Cash lines up 5th. Daniel Tufts gets a good result in 6th. Edward Buchanan, I used to struggle with that name. The Maconi Entertainment, I'm hitting a 100% hit rate this season, baby. P7 on the row with Ann Medma in P8. Only a few drivers behind with Fabio Birchcolt. It's 9th ahead of Frederick Surling.
And then looking at the drivers outside the top 10, it's Alexander Istad starting this race in P11. Marcus Luzo starting this race in P number 12. Right behind them on row number 7 will be Dan Blake and Graham Rory Hunt. And then right behind them, rounding out our grid, is going to be Philip Sear in the number 15 car, starting this race in P15. Want to say that's a first pole position for Kieran Shanks, and we're now on back-to-back weeks here, Howie, where we've had different pole sitters. Jos Marie was able to grab the pole last time at Laguna Seca, and Shanks going to get his first pole position of the season here at Long Beach. But yeah, I feel like the qualifying session going to be rather important for this race today, so that is a very good spot for Kieran Shanks to find himself in for the standing start and the terrifying run into turn number 1 that will come as a result.
Well, at the very least, you don't need to convince the lobby to go single file into the final turn. Going into your rolling start. Standing start here can be a little bit more helpful. Expecting 14 laps. We'll update the ticker when that's confirmed. Only one car left to grid. It's Frederick Surly. Then it's down to the lights as ever. Here they come. Kieran Shanks lined up on pole. Brookman very, very close behind. This is going to be a terrifying run down the straight. There's only one way to see how it goes. Let's go green. Very wide and very long, this run down the first straight. They're going 2 to 3 wide behind, but up front, they're keeping it in a row. Renz Brookman ready to try and duck out of line already, using all the track space. Gotta watch that blue line, but Kieran Shanks looks like he has the lead, and that's Renz Brookman sent for a tumble. He tagged Jordan Gronkowski's car, and that is him sent into orbit.
Yeah, a huge moment for Renz Brookman twirling his way through the air, coming out of turn number 1. That was spectacular, but that's not a good way to get this race underway, and that's big damage for Christopher Cash as well. Huge left rear suspension damage. That's going to take him out of contention as well. Kieran Shanks, that withstood that challenge, holds on to the race lead. Gronkowski now slotted in P2. Marno Noldis rounds out your podium runners as it stands right now. A very hectic start, but I can't necessarily say it's entirely surprising here how we were expecting that run down to turn 1 to be hectic, to be chaotic, and to essentially end in disaster for at least one person in this 15-car field. And it ends in one of the more spectacular bits of aerial acrobatics I've seen in this series.
I've not heard much residual anger on the mic. It's very frustrating to lose a turn 1, but I do have the feeling like everybody probably had their heart in their throat thinking this might just happen, unfortunately. Man Medma running alongside Martin Arnolda side by side for third as the top two run away quite significantly. Can we go too wide into turn 1 this time without needing the EMTs on the track? Daniel Tufts looking to try and get an eye in there as well. He's going to tuck in behind. Tufts is going to have the outside line. They've made it there, but Tufts almost grazes the wall.
Yeah, nearly a disaster for Daniel Tufts. He was impressive this past weekend, got the job done the Weekend Warriors races. Here's Graham Rory Hunt dropping down with some damage, and he's got to spin out. You can see both left-hand side wheels slightly askew there. That's going to bring him down pit lane. Alexander Istad, he's also been struck by a falling anvil. The number 7 machine now slotted in lucky number P13. We were expecting this race to be one of attrition, and it certainly has been up to this point. I got to say, though, that incident with Renz Brookman and Jordan Gronkowski, it was contact between those two that really kicked it all off and popped Renz Brookman up into the air, then hit the wall upside down, hit the tire barrier upside down, head first, not even nose first, head first, helmet bang right into the wall. I am very happy that this is an iRacing event, otherwise I feel like we would have to be reading out a eulogy.
I'm going to keep an eye on the replays for all these. At the end of the race, drivers do have a fast repair available, so they can rejoin the pack and hope that more misfortune strikes as they had a little bit of smoke there quite further back. I think that was Marcus Lucio or Philip Shear tagging at the wall on the way out of the hairpin. Very interesting racing down these long straights as we're not seeing slipstream runs, but you can still get a bit of an advantage. Daniel Tufts is going to take it into turn 1.
Gets it done in rather convincing fashion. Tufts seemed to be the master of the streets just this past Sunday, but looking to see what he can do here in this official race. I will say, talking about Daniel Tufts' record up to this point, yet to get a victory thus far this season here in the officials. Let's see what he'll be able to do. As Ann Medma having a big sideways snap heading out of turn number 5. That turn 5 section, probably the most treacherous corner of them all around here at Long Beach. You know, you think of tough turns around here. We've seen some drivers get struck by the bullets heading all through turn number 1. Obviously, turn 9, that bumpy braking zone at the end of this back straightaway. A good overtaking spot, but also the opportunity for disaster potentially to take place. But I think turn 5, that is the spot where if you wanted to be a track marshal having a day off in the California sun, that would not be the section to work, because turn 5, it is really misconstrued heading all through there. You got killer inside curbs that can pop up the front or the back end of these race cars as if you're just flicking a small little potato chip up into the air. And then you also have that wall on the outside, which is very unforgiving, and the track falls away from you as well as you head on to there. So turn 5, if there's any spot of this track where we're probably going to see a lot of incidents, I would say it's probably there. But here we go, side by side between Medma and Tufts. That's a battle for the final podium spot, and there's a move from Medma for P3.
And that's Jordan Gronkowski sideways under his own power there off the track. And I saw the times dipping up ahead. He's actually been meatballed from that. And this is not caused by another car. This was just an error into turn 1 that's going to kill the entire race. Let's take a look. Here he comes, and I think it's going to be left wall or right wall. What do you think it's going to be, Ron? Usually it's right wall on entry. Oh, that rear stepping out. How? And that's a meat. It's that second tap that's a meatball flag, actually. Left wall.
Yeah. broke off that wheel. Very hard bit of contact on both corners. I'll tell you what, when it comes to some of the tire bundles that stick out against those concrete walls around this track, and as soon as you clip them, you just auger straight into the concrete with nothing to say about it. I'll tell you what here, Howie, if I had $1, I would put it in my wallet.
Things like that are probably why, if you've taken serious damage, you want to return. Graham, Rory, Hunt has chosen not to, but everybody else has hit the track again, because the top three might just take themselves out of the race on the slippy track conditions over the race. As a reminder, 56 on the track, don't put your hand down on there. You will get burned. 29 in the sky like an average British heatwave summer. This time the run isn't there by Daniel Tufts, and every time the run isn't there, I think Martin Arnoldas gets to sneak on through. He's holding back Edward Buchanan, who just seems to have a bit of a micro lockup going into the roundabout, but he's able to just about keep it together. They're not going super elbows out on the racing because I think they know they have to play preservation. Kieran Shanks, very fast. He has set the fastest lap, but he is still in vision of the cars ahead, and really any one mistake could send someone tumbling down and out.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the point that he raised, talking about how the fact that these racers not really throwing haymakers at each other, just keeping it calm, cool, and collected, and trying to avoid any sort of contact either with their other drivers or with the concrete wall. This is that sort of racetrack that can bite, and it can bite hard. One small little mistake, whether it be a lockup into a turn where you decide not to go into the runoff area, could run a little bit wide, have a slight oversteer snap heading out some of these turns, that could end in disaster. We've already seen it take place for a decent chunk of this field. The bottom five have all ran into some difficulties. I gotta say, Dan Blake, I think he's had his own bits of drama as well, as he's about 8 seconds back of Philip Sear. We follow him right down the number 14 car. I think there may have been some extracurricular drama with him, saying the fifth lap of the race is Shanks, holding on to a nice, comfortable 4-second lead at the north end of this field. The only driver who was really there to pounce was Jordan Gronkowski, but he got pounced on by the troubled nature of turn number 1. So, shows that quickly things can change on a dime here.
Anything happened to Dan Blake, it would be this. Otherwise, they don't have much more of a reliable track. Do we think it's just a... or turn 1? Yes, well, he gets through it better than Jordan Gronkowski did, and his car remains in one piece, but that will drop you back on the pace. But a little bit more heat into those tyres. Jordan, though, is back out on the track. While as much as Medmer has inherited the P2 from the driver that had a better launch, it seems like all bets are off and there are no survivors here. That's not Kieran Shanks down the line. Down on lap cars. Very untypical here, but obviously with all the Wrexham repairs, you will be coming out a lap or two down from other drivers and you'll drop out in their way. That's Alexander Istad in the way of the P2 driver and Medmer. And might get that one resolved down the straight. Already approaching the halfway mark. 11 minutes of racing to go. Kieran Shanks coming up on Gronkowski actually into that first turn. Not going to be able to focus the camera much on somebody who has very, very little to show us unless he wrecks, because that's another fastest lap.
Yeah, Shanks clearly in the groove at the present moment, a 126.8. In track conditions like this, the track temperatures have gone up since what they were in qualifying. They've gone up by 3 degrees Fahrenheit. This is still right in that nice little sweet spot where if you wanted to, and if you're feeling desperate enough, and if you're willing to dance with the devil, so to speak, the devil being food poisoning, you could probably fry an egg on the asphalt. I wouldn't recommend that. That doesn't seem very tasty, even though the bit of road dirt would probably add in some protein. As we take a look at the replay to see a moment involving Martin Arnoldas. Contact being made, hits that wall with the left rear tire. It's a right rear, my apologies. And then he goes straight for a trip in through the flowers. Nearly takes out some more drivers. Some of the cars a little bit farther up the road. The first to arrive at the scene of that accident. Yeah, I ran with this yesterday, and I'll ran with it during this broadcast as I see Marcus Lazio having a moment as well in the number 3 machine. The aquarium does actually manage the fountain. There on the inside of turn number 2 and 3. And I have heard stories in the past that if drivers would have a moment heading all through there and run over a decent amount of flowers, the aquarium staff would actually come out to the track, come into the paddock, and slap the offending driver with fish.
Where have I heard that before? Street circuit set in a hot US state where you slap someone with fish. any Hitman 2 players in the chat can get back to me with that. It's Daniel Tufts with the new fastest lap, though. We're into the 26s now that race conditions have started to develop, and there's a little bit of drafting on these drivers. He doesn't make the pass yet. Poor Frederick Surly. I don't remember a race of his I haven't watched where something horrible hasn't happened to him. He was a former series sponsor, and from that point, I think it's just been sort of accidental downhill excursions. Well, I wish him the best in P6 right now. He's enjoying the place, a Formula 4 driver in real life, trying to hold on for all dear life. While up ahead, Daniel Tufts remains in the rearview mirror. I think he might try and make this move soon.
And I will also say these two kind of keeping it calm at the present moment has allowed them to slightly reel in Kieran Shanks. It's still 4-second gap though, so it's not like they're right over top of each other. But I feel like this battle may start to flare up soon as you look at Tufts running in the coattails of that number 2 car of Medma. Not really going for it down into turn number 9. That's a good overtaking spot too, so it's not completely unheard of to go for an overtake like that. So I think Daniel Tufts either playing the patient game or he's just wanting to be there at the very end of this race, take the safety rating, take the I rating, and not have to worry about a completely ruined race car and a potentially twisted wrist with how big of the snaps we've had thus far.
I think most drivers on the track are going to be cursing that turn 1 tyre barrier on the outside. It's there for safety in real life. It's there to give you meatball flags in iRacing. Both drivers navigating it with plenty of respectful space given. Daniel Tufts takes the P2 for now. Frederick Surly, meanwhile, able to jump Fabio Thirchtold for P5, so that's Fabio for position, and I believe that's Philip Sear is the next actual car down, so the rest of this pack are all a lap down. It's that's holding off Cash, who are also battling each other right in the rearview mirror as well. Surly's sort of running off already though. He's already made 7 attempts down the road, and Cash has to try and manage this battle well, trying not to take out a lead lap car, but this dad just jumps out of the way. They're enjoying their fight back and forth among themselves, trying to watch Medma as well to see whether or not he falls back on Daniel Tufts. It's right now we're still in range to try and take this on the line. It's worth noting that the start-finish line is quite early down the line. I quite like the the fear in your heart, but as we see down here, that's just a run down the start-finish, and it's already right there. So you're not going to get a crazy slipstream run in order to save your day. You want to be leading out of that hairpin. You actually want to have the track position, where sometimes having track position on that last lap hurts you.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the tracks that we visited up to this point in the season, with the exception of, I would say, probably Laguna Seca, every other track more or less has been a slipstream fest. Alton Park, Red Bull Ring, Summit Point, Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta, they've all been draft-heavy racetracks. This one, not really having to worry about that. You won't have to worry about a run up to the line as well, that start-finish line, as much as it is a decent run until you get there. Unless you have a cataclysmic exit coming out of the hairpin, you're just going to be able to hold on to that spot. So just keep it clean out of the hairpin and you're going to be good come time for the final lap. But Kieran Shanks looking very good right now. 4.2 seconds now, the gap to himself and your P2 runner of Daniel Tufts, still looking very good for the Brit behind the wheel of that number 8 car to try and get his first win in these broadcasted races here at Maconi Entertainment. Yet to visit victory lane here in these broadcasted races, but we have had a pretty decent amount of winners up to this point. I'll get the exact number here in just a few moments time as we take a look at that absolute pow.
It's tough to work out quite what happened there. If we dig out the replay, I think this is just a case of like mismatched wheels in slightly the wrong place going into the lap. Jordan Gonkowski has won races by threading the needle here before, and I think sending this many cars into turn 1, it just risks accidents. Now, further behind, I do think that 11 car of Martin Arnoldus might lock up here, causing the separate incident, in fact, with Cash. Keep an eye on the on that car. Up ahead, I mean, everybody's probably in a sheer panic of their life. Yeah, there's a bit of a lock-up, and that is going to stop him from turning, and There's just a victim in the way. There's more wrecks, and we will cover every major wreck down the line. I thought I would just bring you back to live pictures. I wanted another picture on that. That's what we're going to get. Kieran Shanks taking possibly one of the easiest wins of his life right now.
Yeah, as long as he can keep it clean up at the front and not have to worry about any sort of drama, he will be in the catbird seat to try and grab the victory. Become the 6th driver thus far in the first 7 races of this season to visit victory lane in these broadcasted strength of field races. But we'll raise this, talking about the other battle up at the front, not this one, the other one between Kieran Shanks and the driver who I thought was going to be the main adversary to the driver, the number 8. Jordan Gronkowski, I keep calling him Gordon. Jordan Gronkowski, right behind, just at the 5th lap of the race there. I gotta wonder what would have been had this driver behind the wheel of that number 4 machine not gone struck by a falling anvil in the earlier stages. Still pushing it to hell and back as we see him head off through turn number 1. No craps given, just slicking the stamp and sending it, heading off through there. But I gotta wonder how that battle up in the front would have been had Gronkowski not set himself into the wall.
That championship standings tower, by the way, very tentative. Remember, drivers in the bottom split can take points from drivers in the top split. If they get more iRacing championship points, they'll get a higher position at the end of the week. We just can't calculate that one right now. I was hoping some of the drivers from that bottom split made it into here, but instead we got one of the highest fields I've ever seen. And it hasn't been a very electric race, but it's been drivers just trying to survive, because I think making it to the end of 20 minutes here is tough in itself. I'm sweating, and I'm not in California, and I'm not driving a car. This would be Daniel Tuff's best result yet. He hasn't really converted much this season in the officials. Is overtaken down the long back stretch, but this is a big game of trading back and forth, and we'll keep a very, very close eye on them in the last lap, because really, decisive moves out of that straight are going to give you the win. If I remind you, not a huge run down to the start-finish, so it pretty much is under that Acura bridge. Is it? It's right there. So nope. You're not going to get a substantial run out of that hairpin with the horsepower these cars have. You do want that decisive move made there on that long straight. We've not seen every single straight turn into position trading. This is about the only significant battle Tuffs tries the outside. It's not going to be enough for him this time. Medma holds it ahead in 2, but these two drivers know and battle each other very well, hard and respectfully. So we don't have too much beef on the menu this week. Instead, we might have an epic duel for 2 more laps.
Yeah, they're keeping it clean and keeping it honest for P2 and P3. This battle looking rather intense and rather exciting. I gotta wonder who's going to be the next to try and pounce, whether or not it's going to be Medma potentially losing out on that spot, or whether or not Tuffs is going to try and get a move done heading down into turn number 9 here in a couple of moments' time. We'll just have to wait and see. Do want to raise this, though, talking about Long Beach. Is this potentially the second shortest track that we've raced at all season long? The only one that I think could be shorter, which actually isn't, I just double-checked, is Summit Point, because that's 0.08 of a mile longer than this track. So I think this may be the shortest circuit that we visited all season long here, Howie.
Donington might be shorter at the end of the season because we're running the shorter layout, and the longest track of the season on the way at Mount Panorama in Australia, week 9. But we're taking one of our last 2 American trips this week. It's Virginia International Raceway, and it is a seminal classic in these cars. The rookies get to drive it. We're racing with the long back straight. It's one of those that everyone knows how to get every inch off. Same time, same place on the channel next week, and the final lap is upon us. Daniel Tuffs doesn't get the move done into turn 1, and that means that if everything remains in place, there's only going to be one more chance to really make this move work. Leader out of that long straight is the winner of the race. Daniel Tuff sticks in behind. Only a few more to go until we see that decisive move. I think he's in range to get this done if Medma just about gets slippy on the defensive. Hopefully we don't see some outrageous blocking for the P2. Where's Kieran Shanks down the road? I've got to make sure not to miss his checkered flag when he crosses the line, even though it's been a very uneventful day. Let me put it like that. We've seen crazier races on the channel, and I'm sure we'll see them soon. Right now, Medma trying to break the toe alongside. Out comes Daniel Tuffs. That inside was held well. He might try it tries to make the cutback. He's going to hold it the best he can, side by side for as long as possible. A big dive to try and make that final hairpin work. I don't think it's going to. And Medma off to the side. They are destined to try and drag race this. Tufts has the run, but I don't know if there's enough distance, and that's going to put Medma in P2. And as I say, I don't want to miss the checkered flag flying. I missed the checkered flag. Kieran Shanks, our winner, already off the track after a win from the front that he's happy he had.
Yeah, Kieran Shanks jumped out to the front, and as I said, right as we are in qualifying going to be so important here at this track. As it turns out, it was very, very important. Didn't have to worry about a tumbling car through turn number 1. Didn't have to worry about any sort of battling throughout this race. Just got that lead early and was able to keep his nose to the grindstone and run up there all day long. So Shanks going to get the job done here. Well done, 7 seconds. I would say it's probably one of the bigger gaps that we have had all season long. Absolutely fantastic stuff from the driver, the number 8.
He finishes ahead and Medma, Daniel Tufts, Edward Buchanan, and Frederick Surley getting a P5 on the board. Fabio Birchtold finishes 6th ahead of Philip Sear, Dan Blake, Martin Arnoldas, and Rens Brookman, who returned to the track but took a massive shunt on lap 1. Jordan Gonkowski finishes 11th. He actually set the fastest lap over the line on the final lap. Christopher Cash finishes 12th. Alexander Istad finishes 13th. Marcus Luzio finishes 14th. And Graham Rory Hunt finishes 15th. I hope our drivers are prompt in getting to the interview room. They're not always, but while we're there, we're going to review a few more of the crashes that got away with us, starting with Alexander Istad. I don't know how many of these were self-inflicted and how many of these were sort of as a result of others. We'll take a look, but given that there's distance to other cars, that tyre barrier, doing it again? Oh, no. He took damage from the barrier, and then that meant he wasn't going to turn into the roundabout. Graham Rory Hunt on lap 2. Side by side with, I'm going to need the spotter guide for that one. I believe that's Marcus Luzio. But he just lost it himself into the barrier up ahead and actually checked up the car ahead down the line. Now, I don't think this is the first crash Rory Hunt has, according to my data, because then he spins it again out of the hairpin. Jordan Gonkowski's crash, we did catch this one on the camera, thankfully for it, as he let by the P2 and the P3. He could have given Shanks a chase for his money, but Shanks was pretty fast down ahead. Gonkowski lost the chance to challenge into the wall, and Alexander Istad wasn't done having a rough time against the walls of this track. As he returns, that's a big jump on one of those curbs. Slides on through. He's keeping it in one piece. I'm really curious to what this is going to be. It's going straight on at the end. It thought there was a crash there because he stopped to let black cars through, it turns out. We'll let him off for that one. Martin Arnaldo's towed to the pit after this one. And yeah, at this point, I'm saying drivers just were cursing that wall. They really, really were. It's there to keep them safe in real life, but I think in the sim, it's just there to collect car parts and send people slowly into the pits. Our final meatball was Marcus Lucio doing much of the same thing. Kieran Shanks already has one funny joke in the general chat, but he can drop into interviews. Come on. Let's get free. Let's get 3 people up in the move so that we can, get going with this. I've got a job to do, and that's to talk to people after a race is done, even if they just give us the do Max Verstappen of the run.
I don't know, maybe I'll just come into the interview waiting area as like my alter ego, like Chip Quisley or something like that. I think we do now have Kieran Shanks there in the interview waiting area, so I'll stall here for a couple of moments. Let some more drivers join. I will say one driver probably had a terrifying view of the moment down to turn number 1. Had to have been Daniel Tufts. I'm going to take a look at that from my own perspective in the sim, because I'm sure Daniel Tufts probably got a chance to take a look to see what sort of seatbelt setup the Rens Brookman had as a result of that moment down to turn number 1.
Kieran Shanks, this is one of those weeks, I think, where you mostly get to just joke around for the whole length for the interview, if you'd please. A very, very dominant win. What was it lapping out there like?
It's great fun. It's nice to come to a track where the engines are a bit less important. I discovered this week that you don't need to use the clutch to shift, and suddenly we're on pole and drive off. So, yeah, I think that was where we were going wrong last week.
A lot of self-inflicted chaos into that first turn, especially the tyre barriers just flying out of the way. Please, trees, I'm trying to give you a good angle and you're not helping me out here. Was traffic ever really a problem? You were laying down faster and faster laps down there, and you definitely gave those walls enough space and respect. We didn't really watch too much of you because, believe it or not, there were things happening on the track. But, I mean, you were almost faultless and definitely the fastest for a long time.
Yeah, I was tempted to roll over, and I love being on the camera, and it was disappointing. I knew I wasn't going to be covered much because there wasn't really anything going on, so I was tempted to drop back. But then I thought, I'll win one, get it in the bag, and then I can have more fun races in the coming weeks.
On the topic of coming weeks, what are you looking forward to most? There's still a very big variety of stuff out there on the schedule, and some tracks that scare me a little to my core.
Let me look, because
it's Virginia
don't know what's
next, Mount Panorama afterwards.
Yeah, so looking at the calendar, Mount Pan, Sonoma, Motorsport Arena, Donington, all those tracks have corners, so I should be fast.
Does that say that you're not very fast in a straight line?
No, straight line's never been like my most talented part of the circuit. The corners tend to be where I'm quite quick. Straight's not so much.
Next, you're going to be telling me you built a car for combat. Kieran, any more thank yous or shout outs?
No, just thanks to me for the amazing setup and great driving. And whoever was P3 at T1, because they made my race very easy.
Well, that's one more win, and once those drop weeks start coming in, I think you might be a competitor for the top. We'll be seeing more of you in future weeks.
Yeah, cheers again for the stream, guys. Thanks very much.
Don't think anyone else quite wants to say hi. I would have liked to hear from Daniel Tufts, but I will get your on board of the Daniel Tufts start, I think, because you're right. That probably was the scariest thing we've seen our entire life, and I'm incredibly curious too. It's just quite what he sees. Oh boy.
Yeah, I feel like the prospect of having an entire face full of a front left tire on a Formula Ford car is not a very good prospect. Let's see this. The contact being made. There's Brookman up in the air, upside down into the wall. Holy cow. Okay. I thought that was going to be a humdinger of a replay, and it most certainly was. That's probably going to end up on a Maconi Entertainment Twitter, X, whatever the heck they call it nowadays, post at some point. Because, I feel like I just got tased just looking at that replay.
Well, I enjoy, much like any other, padding for some good time. And do you know how last week you complained and I'm going to use the word complain even if you didn't complain, because it's funny how you complain that I always leave you a Renz Brookman.
Yeah, so
I leave you a Renz Brookman. How about I leave you a Renz Brookman?
Yeah, I feel like Renz and I are at this point going to be on a first-name basis. Renz, welcome into the broadcast booth. It's us having a chat yet again. Rather intriguing race for you, shall we say. I will give you full credit. That moment down into turn number 1 was absolutely spectacular. So I will give you that credit where credit is certainly due.
Well, I'm happy for you guys that it was spectacular. It was a little bit less enjoyable for me. But no, yeah, it was a very short race in that regard for me. Which is a shame, because I was looking quite. My pace was looking quite good on the previous races, so I was looking forward to this one actually. But yeah, bad misjudgment by myself, I have to say. Nothing on Jordan's part. I just took the normal racing line, and I didn't expect him to be there. So yeah, hooked wheels and upside down I went.
Yeah, I want to ask you about your thoughts on this Long Beach track. It's been very tricky all throughout the week with very high track temperatures. Of course, this track is usually just tricky enough as is. What have you made of Long Beach being a part of the season's calendar?
I actually really like it. I mean, there's zero margin for error, unlike a lot of the other tracks, where you can basically just run off track if you slightly get it wrong, which is not necessarily the case here. If you do that, then you end up in the wall, which I very much like. So yeah.
And I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you about next week's race. So we're going from a track that has no runoff area to a track that has a whole lot of it. VIR, Virginia International Raceway. I may be a little bit biased because I'm an American. I am much closer to that track than I am to this one. But what are your thoughts heading there in 1 week's time?
Well, I always liked the track. That said, that was always in the bigger GT cars, so I've never driven the Formula Ford there. It's the full one, right?
Correct. Yeah, full back straightaway, not having to worry about the infield.
Yeah, I think that might be a draft race as well. I don't think there is much opportunity to actually get away. So if you just be able to stay close to the cars in front, it turned it into another Watkins Glen, I think, which is fun. But I prefer this kind of tracks.
Well, certainly looking forward to seeing what VIR will have to come in 1 week's time. Back on the draft tracks, I have a feeling that is basically going to be a game of leapfrog at a steady click of 130 miles an hour. But Renz, thank you for joining us here in the broadcast booth. We'll let you give any thanks or shout-outs before we let you go.
Yeah, of course, you guys again, and the people that make the broadcast possible. And again, all the regular drivers in the series. Also, some guys that were not in here. I've had some great races earlier today, so... Yeah, no, thanks to all the drivers.
And thank you as well for joining us here in the broadcast booth, Renz. Well done on the glorious moment heading down into turn number 1, and looking forward to seeing you out there on the racetrack in VIR next time, Matt.
I'm glad I could provide some entertainment, even though it was short.
Entertaining it most certainly was, man. Thank you for joining us.
Right.
You're implying to me that you'd quite like to see what that looks like on board.
Alrighty, let's see this from the cockpit view. We are going to get a good look at the inside of the tire bundles on the outside of turn number 1 here at Long Beach. A view that I personally have never had in my life, and I'm not sure if I want to. You know, seeing the inside of a tire when you're in a car is usually not a very good deal. So let's take a look at this from Brookman. I thought he was going to maybe sweep around the outside and get the move done in rather spectacular fashion, but instead he wrecks out of the race in spectacular fashion. And let's see this. There's the 4 of Gronkowski, and there's the Acura wall. I'll tell you what, Acura, they got some very good unintentional advertising here during this broadcast. If they would like to send us some money here on Maconi Entertainment, I don't think either of us would object to that one bit.
That marks another week just over the halfway mark, and plenty more excitement to come on the channel, including some wild races terrify even me out on the schedule. Same time, same place on all the Maconi Entertainment channels. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Howie Burrows, joined by Ron Marnes as ever.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.